coaching calls sometimes is actually what we got to do in one of our most recent calls, which is we get to role play sales calls with our clients.
Yes.
Mhm.
And I'm always like, and I'm always like, bring me your biggest objection. I love it. Right. And you always kind of make fun of me, but it's
I
true because I really think that sales or enrollment is such an inner game. Everybody's always worried about the objection that the client brings, but really, this is all about your inner objections. Are you comfortable with your offer? Are you comfortable with your pricing? Are you sure about who you want to work with? All of those things get triggered in the context of sales. And I love our group coaching calls because they're this great, safe testing ground
Yeah.
for clients to kind of embody this new epiphany process. So we have the full, we have an entire sales training in the program, obviously. But I mean, I don't know what it was like. You've been a client of this program, Maria, so you can tell me what it was like. But sometimes I feel like when you watch a training or you read a book or you get information about something, you can have these like these epiphanies and you're like, oh my God, I never thought of that. That's brilliant. I totally like this, makes so much sense. Da, 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 da. And then when you hit real life and you're in that situation, it's the difference between watching the Olympics on TV and trying to figure skate. Like it's just real different.
No, you're so right because it's one thing to get concepts and they make sense, and it's another thing to actually express and live those concepts, which there's a continuum to that, right? I mean, there's a continuum to everything, but there's a
Everything.
continuum to this. And that's exactly why we like to do sales call role playing on calls and even little snippets like objection handling on our sales calls.
Exactly. And so today was kind of juicy because we talked about the most common. So obviously there are the three most common objections, which are I need to think about it. Oh my God, how much money did you say it was? Especially when you're at a premium level. And then I need to talk to someone else. It's like I need to take permission from a spouse, a partner, a business partner, somebody else. So today we really we dug into all three. But the one that I want to bring up at the moment is oftentimes any of the big three can be a smokescreen for the underlying three, right? Do you want to tell us what they
Exactly.
are?
Well, so I want to back up really quickly because with any kind of objection handling, it's first so important to be able to figure out, is this a condition or is it a
Mm,
real objection, right? Because sometimes what seems like an objection is actually just a condition. And so here's what I mean. A condition is something external, an external obstacle that just needs to be handled. So, for example, if somebody they're an absolute hell yes, they are so ready, but they're having trouble finding resources, finding the money to pay, that's an external condition. That's an external obstacle that you just need to help them resource, right? But then if it's something deeper than that, something internal, then it becomes a real objection. And there really are only three real objections. When you peel the layers, there's only three. They are I don't trust the process, I don't trust you, meaning you, the coach, or
mhm,
I don't trust myself.
mhm. And oftentimes they'll present as a big jumbled mess, or they'll present as something totally different. So the client will be like, that's too much money, or I really need to think about it. So I need to think about it is often the lid that people will slap on top of these three core objections. I don't trust the process, I don't trust you, the coach, and I don't trust myself, right? So part of what we teach our clients to do is it's coaching ultimately, because your job as the coach is to really be fully present. I like to say over and over, I'll say this is your biggest, best, most effective sales tool is presence. It's
Mhm.
not some fancy script, it's not some technology, it's not anything. It's like, can you hear what's actually going on a call? And that's
Mhm.
what we train our clients to do, is to really ask better questions and then to interpret the answers at a much deeper level. Because somebody will oftentimes, and I'm sure if you've been in coaching any length of time, you've been on calls like this where you ask somebody a question and then they tell you something and they say something, and it's probably something they think you want to hear.
Mm.
If you're not present in that moment, you may miss the fact that they're just giving you some surface level nonsense. Now, here's the problem. If you don't gently but firmly call them out in that moment, you're going to get to the end of the call and they're going to need to think about it. And I'll tell you why they're going to need to think about it. They're going to need to think about it. Remember those top three objections. I don't trust the process. I don't trust you. I don't trust myself. They're not going to trust you. And the reason they're not going to trust you is not because they think you're lying. It's not because they think any of your claims online are fake or anything like that. The reason is because you told them you're a great coach, but you did not show them.
Hmm.
They did not experience the depth of your coaching ability because you were so busy being nice or just moving on to the next question on your list or whatever else. You were not present with them, because if you'd been present with them, you'd have heard the tonality. You'd have heard that little, you could have picked up the energy where you're like, you just said something there and there was energy behind that. So like, what's that? Bring it out. Ask a question. Challenge them while making them feel safe. So it's a really interesting juxtaposition of those two energies. That's what coaching is really about. And that's why our clients convert the way that they do, is because they're able to hold those two energies side by side to be like, I'm going to make you feel really safe. I'm not judging you, but I'm also not going to let you get away with whatever bullshit you're pulling on yourself, because that is the problem. That right there is the problem, not what you think it is.
And it's really the essence of good coaching. And it takes
Mm.
practice too, because so presence is a skill that you refine and you refine and you refine. And so it's one of the main reasons why we do role playing. We sit with our clients and dig into these pieces. We dig into what their objections are, what their
Yes.
biggest fear is on a sales call, that, so that we can help them jujitsu that, so that they are super, super present and able to hold that tension for their clients on the call, because that's how they ultimately serve them.
Always, because what ends up happening is you bring in clients that are a mirror of you. So
Mhm.
what happens is, if you have a fear that you have not dealt with, a client is for sure going to come and put their finger right on that fear and be like, that I think this is, if you think it's too much money, if you're not comfortable with your pricing, then the first thing you're going to hear a client say is, that's too much money. I'm not comfortable with this pricing, right? Because then you haven't dealt with it. If you have dealt with it, when they bring that up, you can be like, I totally understand why you would see that. Here, let me walk you through how I arrived at this number. So you feel in deep integrity with your pricing. You're able to understand and explain. It's not some random arbitrary number that you've picked. It really makes sense. And you're doing this because here's the value. Here's what the ROI is. All of these pieces, if you don't know how to explain it, you can't assuage somebody's fear. Don't trust the process. Again, if you haven't demonstrated the caliber of coach that you are on this call, and if you don't have a process, assuming, like, I don't do my calls anymore, but if somebody else is doing your calls, if you don't have a process that is in alignment with your company's culture and ethos, then again, people are going to be like, I don't know. I have to think about it. And that's what you're going to get. And then the final piece is, sometimes people are like, oh, I've had my heart broken so many times. So this has nothing to do with you, nothing to do with your culture, nothing to do with the quality of this call. You may have shown up 100%, really coached them. It's amazing. That last little piece is their history, their trauma of, I've spent, with so many of the people that we work with, have spent $30,000, $40,000, $70,000, $100,000 trying to get the clarity, and finally they come to us and they're like, can you please help me, you're my last hope, kind of thing, right? And try to get to us before then, because I don't know, man, it's your money. But right, but people will often come to us and then they have this like, oh, like, do I dare take another risk? Can I justify this to myself? And in that place, you really have to just be with them. And there's, ways that to be with them, where you're asking them, does this feel like the same thing? Because also, we don't ever want to take somebody's money and not deliver on a promise and be another notch on somebody's coaching bedpost, kind of thing. So it's like, if this sounds like every other program you've taken and it hasn't worked for you, then hell, don't work with us. Don't erode our confidence in our methods. We're not for you, and that's fine. But typically, when people are in that place, they're looking to be held, to not have their problem fixed. I know this was a conversation that we had on our call, because we had a client who was just like, she comes from the hospitality industry, and she was just like, my impulse is to, like, you don't like this, let me take it away. You don't like this, let me fix it. Like, let me
Mhm.
turn on the lights, let me turn up the temperature, let me, like, do whatever needs to be done. And so a thing that you want to think about if that is you, and if you feel stress around, I just, I want to help people, for crying out loud. I don't want to sell them. I want to help them.
Yeah.
You need to define for yourself the experience that you want your clients to have with you, because there is a world of difference between just fixing somebody's problem, slapping a band-aid on it, versus actually empowering them to help themselves. And you have to decide who you want to be. There's no right or wrong answer to this, but you have to decide what is the experience you want to create. A good way to visualize this is, imagine a baby, so an infant doing tummy time. So this is where they're on their tummy. Babies, a lot of babies hate it because they have to like work on their neck strength. They have to hold up their big fat heavy heads, and then they can't see properly. They don't have the same vantage point, so they get really mad. And so imagine this baby now trying to turn over onto their back, right? And they're struggling and they're mad and they're crying maybe. What do you do? There will be that impulse to step in and to just gently flip the baby over, or support their head and move them over and release the tension that they're in. And
Mhm.
you can do that. Again, there's not, no one's judging anybody. But there is huge benefit and a very different experience for the baby if you're able to be with them. Maybe you lay down next to them and you say, darling, you're working so hard. Wow, this is so hard. You're doing great. I would feel like screaming too if I were in that place. I've been there. You can do it. And then let the baby take as long as they need to flip over by themselves. Imagine the satisfaction that that baby feels in having done it themselves. Imagine the message that you've now sent subconsciously. That baby is a subconscious, that the conscious mind hasn't come online yet, right? Subconsciously, you have now reinforced this notion of, you're capable, you've got this. Struggle is not the enemy. If you want to create that kind of culture in your coaching program, if that is the method that you enjoy for empowering your clients, then make sure that your sales process is congruent with that. Stop slapping band-aids on everything.
It's so true, because when you make your sales process congruent with that, what it does is it shows the same container that you hold in your coaching. It's really the gateway. You give them a flavor of what you do in your coaching.
An appetizer. You don't want to
Mhm.
give them a cupcake before a meal, but you do want to give them a little appetizer that is very much in line with what they're going to experience deeper in the program. And it allows you to taste each other. It allows you to see how much resistance are they bringing to the call. You know, how
Mhm.
much energy are you feeding each other? Is it a pleasurable process, or is it really like, oh, I don't want to work with this person, right? And that allows you to then bail, and you don't make them an offer. So
Yeah.
these are some of um, the some of the depth that we take our clients to experientially, because it's all very well, see, like right now you're listening to me talk about this and you're probably being like, oh wow, I never thought about it that way, that's brilliant, I'm going to totally use that. And then you're going to actually go and use it, and things will break, because that's what happens. Real life hits your idea and it's like, psh, it's never exactly what you thought it was going to be. So to have a place to come to experience it, to relive it in a safe container, that's what we do for clients. And it's so interesting. It's like really juicy. It's juicy for us as coaches too, because we always learn something from these processes. We understand better what the objections are. It helps us, it guides our content. It helps us figure out what content we want to put out for you here in this free group. And so I would love to hear your biggest ahas. Like what is something that you have figured out from listening to this little conversation between Maria and me? I would love to hear what that is. And if you have suggestions for content that you want to see.
Yes, go ahead and put that in the chat. And as always, it's just so much fun to get to sit here and geek out on the little snippets of what we get to do in our Impact with Influence calls, Geeta. It's so
I
fun.
love it. I love it. And if you're wanting the kind of help that that we just talked about, if you would like to be a part of this process where you're getting this deep support, so you're not just learning a concept and then stuck to figure it out on your own, but where you can actually like live it and work through it and struggle with it and be supported in that struggle, then use the link that's somewhere around this video to book a call and experience the process for yourself and join our program so that we can support you more deeply.
Yeah. Thank you, Geeta. It's just fun as
Thank you,
always.
Maria.